This month on Learning Now TV, we're talking to Kevin Williams. Now, he is CEO of the Fostering Network, and he has a really good view on what corporates can learn from the third sector, which of course is what this whole series is all about. I personally think there's a lot for corporates to learn. Let's hear from Kevin. So Kevin, your view is corporates have got lots to learn from the third sector. What is it specifically that we can learn in learning and development from you guys?
So I think that quite often corporates focus on the need for their bottom line. That's their raison d'etre. That's what they're
That's
there
what
for.
we're there for, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think at charities, people forget that actually we also have to run as a business and we have to focus on the bottom line as well. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're delivering corporate social good. We have to make sure that our beneficiaries are receiving a service from us. And that leads to a whole range of complexities. It's complex in terms of the way that our funding arrangements are focused. So from long-term grant funding to short-term grant funding, from a mix of commercial activity and for us at the Fostering Network, a membership income. So I think that whole diversity of income means that we have to really focus on the business of the organisation, focusing on the bottom line to make sure that we're going to exist into the long term. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we meet our public good. So for us, that's about improving the foster care system, making sure that foster carers and the children they look after are supported as best that they can.
Okay, so what I'm hearing there is that actually corporate organisations are focusing perhaps on one thing, maybe their income stream is not as diverse as yours, but actually you can focus on that diversity. I'm thinking about companies being a little bit more agile. That's the word of the year, isn't it? It's the word of probably this decade. But you've already doing this already in organisations. So obviously for Learning Now TV, we're interested in what we can learn and how your learning development teams can support your organisation. Talk me through then, how do you deal with that diversity of income? How do you deal with teaching people that, you know, today we're going to get some income from members and where we can spend that, but actually you don't necessarily have long-term learning plans for your staff, or am I guessing wrongly? Talk me through what that looks like from a learning perspective.
Yeah, so I think for our staff, the first thing we have to do is to make sure that they are competent and compliant and good, excellent in terms of the jobs that they do and the specialism.
How do you do that? You don't know where your money's coming from in 6 months' time or a year's time?
Sure, so the specialism in which they deliver, so a marketing person, we need to make sure that they're the best possible marketing that they can be. Our comms and communication people, the best possible comms and communication strategy that we can have.
And that's tricky, isn't it? On third sector wages.
That is a challenge. But I think that one of the jobs around is making sure that we become financially literate. And I think historically, lots of charities would have delivered programmes and projects that were grant funded, and then they would have ended. And what I saw was a range of projects which were coming to an end, and then a new grant application. And
so
that
new
meant
direction?
New direction
Yeah.
Sometimes. And often that meant, I think, people were on fixed term contracts and some of those issues which weren't helpful in terms of workforce strategy. I think increasingly organisations are using grant funding as prime pump funding to then think about what can we convert this into a commercial activity. So for us, we run a specialist programme called the Mockingbird programme, which is a way of structuring and supporting foster carers, which we started with grant funding from the Department for Education Innovation Fund, but increasingly we've converted that to a commercial model
so
that
it becomes
more sustainable
exactly.
in the longer
That's the
term.
word. And that's no different, is it? From a corporate organisation, they need to think about sustainability, and from a third sector organisation, even more so. So I think there's some learning there. How have you made your learning sustainable?
So because we're now able to focus into the future, to begin to have 2 and 3 and 4 year plans, we're able to think around what are the learning and development needs for us as an organisation. I think the other thing that charities historically have not been very good at is making sure that their staff are financially literate. So a large proportion of our work has actually been focused on our staff becoming financially literate in order that they can understand the issues around business planning and business development and strategy development in order to make sure that the organisation is sustainable into the future. And when we're running programmes, we think all the time from the very beginning, what is the life cycle of this programme and what is its legacy in terms of converting potentially to a more commercial minded approach.
It's a really, really good lesson for the corporate sector, because I think you're absolutely right with regards to that financial literacy. Do I understand when I'm spending my corporate budget what actually it takes to get money in to spend that in the first place? And that financial literacy runs across all elements. So, you know, how much does it cost for HR? How much does it cost for even the finance team to be in the building? There's a lot of hidden costs, which I think when you're a third sector and you're really itemising every line item, then you're a lot more acutely aware of.
Absolutely, and as a result of that, we try to use our resources as the best we can. So people have talked around agility. You know, I think one of the things for us as an organisation is we try to make sure that our workforce is much more agile, because having a building in central London has a cost to it.
Yeah.
So thinking around what's the best use of that building, for example, how do we use that resource as best we can, and at the same time, how do we make sure that our staff are agile, get the right support, have the right IT connections in order that they can do their job from a variety of areas, because as a UK-wide organisation, we have to make sure that we meet a UK-wide need, but we can't afford to have offices based everywhere in the UK.
Yeah.
So a spend on improving our IT services means our workforce can be more agile. A lot of our work actually is out in the communities, is out with our fostering services and our foster carers. So important to think around how do you build a sustainable programme of investment into the right areas that supports the workforce. One of the ways that we've done that in terms of learning and development is through our Charity Learning Consortium investment, because through that we know that our staff can pick on a variety of topics that focus on management, on that financial literacy I've talked about, on the specialism of the area of work that they develop in.
It's great to get our sponsors of this segment into the whole piece. Thanks very much, Charity Learning Consortium. What we've heard today from Kevin is that there's lots of factors in a third sector organisation which are more acutely focused than perhaps in a corporate. You know, if you're one person in L&D and you work in a huge organisation and you feel like you're a cog in the machine, just perhaps think a little bit more carefully. If you were in a smaller organisation, would I spend that little bit of money? How would I get the best out of my L&D? How would I understand the impact of that bottom line? It's been really great talking to you today, Kevin. Thanks so much.
Thank you.